Okay, you said the strips were myomere and
myomeres.
Myosepta.
And the myosepta are the connective tissue separations between the myomeres. Okay, so there's this horizontal septum that separates dorsal myomeres from ventral myomeres. The dorsal myomeres are your epaxials, and your ventral myomeres are your hypaxials. Okay, epaxial, hypaxial. Okay, so let's see. We have fins, right? We have pectoral fins, we have pelvic fins, we have a dorsal fin, and we have a caudal fin. The pectoral and pelvic fins have muscles on the dorsal side, which are your pectoral and pelvic abductors. And then on the ventral sides, they have muscles, which are the pectoral and pelvic adductors. Okay? And then the dorsal fin has a muscle called the dorsal fin muscle. All right? You have a caudal fin, and you can see that, I just dripped glue on me. You can see that the muscle part of the tail extends into the caudal fin. This muscular portion is called the keel, and the keels run lateral to the mid-sagittal plane. Okay.
Question.
Yeah, it was. Okay. So if we go up here to the head of the shark, you'll notice several things. It's got holes on top of its head, and these are the spiracles. Spiracles, okay? It's got eyes, all right? It's got a mouth. The mouth is called subterminal, remember, because it lies underneath. Okay, so it's like the Simpsons are all subterminal mouth. All right, and it has these big holes on the ventral side. These are the nostrils. Gross. Okay, and the nostrils have in the front a small hole that's called the incurrent aperture. They have a larger hole that's the excurrent aperture. Now, it's kind of the same chamber. There's a little flap right here called the nasal flap. I really think that's what it is. I couldn't think of it. But it's the nasal flap, and it separates the incurrent from the excurrent aperture. Now, if you look into the nostril, you'll see that there's a lot of folded tissue. You can't see it very well. You want me to close up here?
Oh,
crap, sorry.
Oh, my phone, my beautiful phone, why?
Okay, so inside there is a bunch of folded tissue. And this folded tissue is called nasal lamellae, L-E-M-E-L-L-A-E. Okay, and one is called a lamella. But these nasal lamellae help increase the surface area for chemosensation. So as the shark is traveling through water, it can pick up water in its nostrils and extrude the chemicals that will have scent. So blood, you know, in the water with sharks and chicks for this guy. Okay, so it has those nasal lamellae. The shark has teeth. It has rows of teeth, and they're sharp and ooh, yeah, they're sharp enough to cut your gloves. So if you feel something cold and slimy, it's because your gloves have been cut by something. All right. So
and you're bleeding.
And you're bleeding. It will draw blood. They will. They're sharp. They're teeth. Okay?
They're sharks.
Sharp teeth. All right. So what I want you first to notice, though, is that you have the spiracle on top of the head. Oh, don't forget about the holes. What are those holes called?
Ampullae of Lorenzini.
Ampullae of Lorenzini, and they have both lateral line and electroreceptive properties. So the difference is the lateral line is mechanoreceptive, so it responds to like waves, sound waves, or struggling, whatever. Okay, so you have this spiracle here, and the spiracle has a wall. This wall is actually a wall of muscle, and the muscle is called the spiracularis, okay? And it helps close the flap of the spiracle, all right? So the spiracularis is there. If we look at the spiracularis and look where the wall of the spiracularis meets the body, okay, it's way down deep in there. You're gonna have to look for yourself, all right? That muscle down there is called the levator palatoquadrati. okay? Levator palatal quadrant, the LPQ muscle, that helps bring up the palatal quadrate cartilage, all right? So in essence, it's helping close the jaw, chomp, all right? So you have Spiracles, Levator palatal quadrant. If I look around the side, just dorsal to the eye, or not dorsal, just caudal or posterior to the eye, there's this big round muscle here. It's like the cheek muscle. It kind of is the cheek muscle. That's called the Adductor Mandibular. Adductor. So it's closing the mouth. It's adding the mouth, the bottom jaw, to the central body line. Okay? Adductor Mandibular. If we look just caudal to that, there are two strips of muscle. Some of it's gone on this side, but I won't ask you to distinguish between them. There's the one that's closest to the Adductor Mandibulae is called the Levator Hyomandibula. And then the one that's just behind it, which is a small strip like this, it's partially gone on this guy, is called the Levator Hyomandibula. Okay, Levator Hyoides, Levator Hyomandibula. So what I'll do is on an exam, I'll pin one of them, and if you tell me it's the Hyomandibula, that's fine. If you tell me it's the hyoides, it'll be fine too. Okay, because that muscle is very thin, it's often stripped off, and it's kind of unfair to have you know a stripped off muscle. Okay. So we're going to travel more caudally or more posteriorly, and we'll notice that on the side we have 5 gill slits, right? Okay, the more gill slits, the more ancient you are, right? The fewer gill slits, the more derived. So you have 5 gill slits, and each of these 5 gill slits opens into a gill chamber. And when we cut open the shark, we're going to look more at the gill chamber, and then next week we're going to study the specific arteries and veins and different things in it. Okay, so each of these gill slits is controlled, the opening and closing, by a series of muscles. If you look on the dorsal side of the gill slits, you'll see that there are strips of muscles that kind of correspond to each of these flaps. These are your dorsal superficial constrictors. Okay, so they close the upper half of these gill slits. Your ventral superficial constrictors are the same, but on the ventral side, there's strips of muscle here that correspond with each gill slit. Ventral superficial constrictors, dorsal superficial constrictors. Now, just dorsal to the dorsal superficial constrictors is this triangular muscle right here. Can you guys see that? It's a triangle. You see that all right? Okay. That is the cucularis. Cucularis. I have no idea what it means. Oh, okay. I don't know the root behind cucularis, so, all right. It's just that triangular muscle, just dorsal to the dorsal superficial constrictors. Okay, so that's it for your head muscles. What I want to do then is come onto the ventral side. I'm going to pick some of this connective tissue off here. You guys did a nice job skinning, by the way.
We're professional skinners.
So in my CVA class, I also had to learn taxidermy. So.
Oh gosh, I've skinned a deer before, but.
Oh, cool. I
from
have
Canton.
skin.
That's what we do.
Oh, okay. I'm from Michigan. We get days off of school for that stuff.
Oh.
Okay. Mine are better, but I chewed them up. See? Right here. Okay.
So what does the cucularis do?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. It's just the triangle muscle.
This is just triangle muscle. I know it has something to do with the pectoral.
Okay.
Pectoral girdly stuff. Okay. Now, when you flip over the shark on the ventral side, you'll see that, well, actually, you can feel the mandible bones on each side of the lower jaw. And there's a strip of muscle that runs between each of the mandibles. This muscle is called the intermandibularis. Okay? See how convenient that is? Intermandibularis. All right? And just caudal, or posterior to the intermandibularis, is these triangle muscles right here. And these triangle muscles actually run ventral to your ventral superficial constrictors. Okay, and you can see here really easily how that forms a triangle. So the two of them stuck together forms a triangle. This one doesn't look triangular. It's right in here. Not as much, but it's there. Okay, those triangle muscles are the coracoarcules. Okay, that's another difficult speller, coracoarcules. Okay, there's a series of muscles that starts with coraco, but they have different endings. So this one is the coracoarcules. All right. So what you need to do today is you need to kind of very carefully start lateral to the midline in these, the intermandibularis here. Oh my God, I forgot about these. Don't forget about these. Okay, so down here by your pelvic fins, you have the claspers, and you can see here that there are strips of muscles. And if you kind of stick your probe into the top part of the connective tissue and muscle, you'll see that it's a tube. And whenever these muscles contract, it helps pump water through these tubes. These are called the siphons. Okay, and once the water is pumped through those tubes, it makes the claspers rigid so that they can be used as an intermittent organ to deliver sperm into the female. Okay, so your siphons are right there too. All right, and they're medial to your pectoral adductors. Okay, they run along the midline. So anyway, what you want to do is you kind of want to start picking at this muscle, at the intermandibularis, from lateral to the midline, okay? And the reason that we're going to pick at it kind of messily is because there is a muscle that runs fairly superficial and just underneath the intermandibularis, okay? So I know that's messy, but I'll show you what you need to know. Okay, so remember you have the intermandibularis that runs on the outside between the two mandible bones. It's actually 2 layers of muscle. And when we flip over the intermandibularis, you can see that that second layer of muscle runs underneath. That's called the interhyoideus.
The, like,
it's just the, so actually, no, it's actually on here. Okay, they're hard to separate, but it's 2 layers. The top layer is the intermandibularis, the bottom layer is the interhyoideus. Okay, and then just deep to those, you'll be able to see if you don't pick too far. Most people cut through it. Okay, so use your forceps and gently pick. You'll see that you have this muscle, a singular muscle that's running from the coracoarcual area to the mandible bone. That's called, hold on, sorry. That's called the coracomandibularis. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Okay, so it's running from the coracoarcual area to the mandible. This is the coracomandibularis. And if I stick my forceps in here and pick out away at the blue stuff, that's just connective tissue. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Butchering the shark. Okay, you see there are strips of muscle lateral to the coracomandibularis. And see there's one strip here and one strip here. These are the coracohyoids. All right, coracomandibularis, coracohyoids. Now, what you'll have to do then is kind of dig deep underneath those coracohyoids, because, gross, there's another strip of muscle very deep to that. Okay, I just dug it up here. Okay, those are the coracobranchials, branchial, referring to branchial basket, pharynx, all that stuff. Okay, so you have your coracoarcules, the triangle. You have your coracomandibularis from the coraco area to the mandible. You have your coracohyoids, lateral and deep to the coracomandibularis, and the coracobranchials, which are lateral and deeper to the coracohyoids. Covering them, you have a layer on the outside, the intermandibularis. Underneath is the interhyoideus. Okay? Good? Good? That's what you need to know up there. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to cut your shark open, okay? And it's going to cut, you need muscle and you need big scissors, okay? All of these big scissors are extremely dull, all right? But they'll still cut you, so be careful. So what you want to do when you're cutting the shark open is you want to find where the opening is where they did the injection.